shutters,
how did you meet?
the shutters behind you are right?
Yeah. Yeah, I think we're okay. Okay. This is March 7th, 2009. We're here with Jack and Willie Willoughby. Okay, first question. How did you guys meet?
Take it.
My dad and Jack's dad both worked at the Ohio Steel Foundry in Springfield, Ohio. And Lima was the main company. So they were transferred up here in 1940. And so our families moved up. And Jack's mother and dad found the house that we moved into. And we just lived right across from each other. So they came here because our fathers were transferred on their jobs.
What were their jobs? What did they do?
Jack's dad was a tool and die maker, and my dad was chief inspector of the steel foundry.
Did your mothers work at all outside the home?
No, never. They worked plenty. We had big families.
What did you think when you first saw her, Jack? Did you have any thoughts when you first saw her?
Take it.
You're Jack, she said.
It doesn't matter.
Okay, I can tell you.
Okay.
When we got into Lima, his mother gave us our first breakfast, and it was about, going on 8 o'clock in the morning, and the screen door opened up, and he came walking out. And now I knew his mother and father knew his sister, but we lived on the opposite sides of the town. I never met Jack. And he came out and he had on this big jacket that says State Champions. And he had believe it or not, he had all these black curls all over his head, down on his forehead. And I thought, oh, he's cute, you know. And then the reason we got acquainted, we were both strange to Lima. We didn't know anybody, but we had something in common to talk about our parents and everything. So when we were in high school, we just started going together, and that was it.
How long did you two date before you got married?
3 years. We moved up in 40, and we got married in 43.
And when did you get married? What was your anniversary date?
May the 18th, 1940. And we were married in Denver, Colorado, because Jack was in service, and I went out there and joined him, and we lived in Colorado for about a year, wasn't it? Then he went overseas.
Now, were any of your children born by then, or?
No. When I came back home, then I was pregnant for Linda. And Jack didn't see Linda until she was a year and a half old.
And she started to cry once you see me.
Yeah. Well, I had a picture of him over the crib when she'd go to bed at night. And she'd say, tell your daddy good night. Well, that's all she knew. And when I said, this is your daddy, she ran into the bedroom and said, that's my daddy.
Were all of the other kids born here in Lima?
Yes, all 4 kids were born in St. Rita's Hospital. They're about, Linda and Cindy are almost 4 years apart, because by the time he came back, otherwise there probably had been another one. And then they're all 2 years apart.
Oh, wow. And were your parents in the armed services at all?
No.
Nobody in World War I or anything?
No. Well, we both had brothers that were in service. My mom, I had 5 brothers and a husband in service.
And I had 2 brothers in service.
And him.
Well, tell me about your brothers and sisters, their names and what they did and their families. I know this is a big one for you guys.
Before I forget about it,
Okay.
My brother said to me one day that he had War news than Willoughby and Darby.
Always, yeah.
Fake headlines.
In a newspaper. Well, you want to name your brothers, your sister?
And you do better than me.
Yeah, okay.
I can't hem a horn around.
Okay. Well, Jack
You're
had,
okay.
Jack had a brother, Bill, and a brother, what's the one that died?
Bob,
Bob, that died young, and a
that's
sister,
sister,
uh,
Dorothy.
yeah, but she died too. They
Yeah.
died young. Dorothy, two of them died young, and then his father married his mother, who we called Mimi, and there was Ray, and Katie, and Jack, and then Alan Jr. we called Mooney. And then in my family, my mother and dad's first baby was named Thomas.
How many stars are in the sky?
They named him Thomas, but he died when he was 6 months old. He had pneumonia. Then I had 8 brothers. There was Georgie, Chuck, Lou, Denny, Joe, Max, Russell, and Roger. We called Pee-wee. And then there was my sister and myself. So I had 8 brothers and a sister.
Wow.
Yeah, big family.
Now, are they all live around here, or?
No, they were mostly all in Springfield, and his brother, one of them, lived in Michigan, Detroit, Michigan. The ones that lived in Lima were my younger brothers. There was Pee-wee and Russ and Max, and then my brother Joe. But the others all lived in Springfield, Ohio, where we came from originally.
And your last name was Briem.
Briem, B-R-I-E-M. Uh-huh.
Okay. Willie, where did you work, or what did you do during World War II, like when he was gone? Besides raising Linda,
Well,
I guess.
after I came home and I had Linda, the baby, I lived with my mom. I went back to my mom and dad's and lived, and I didn't work very much then because I was taking care of Linda. And then sometimes I worked in a dry cleaners for a while. But mostly I just stayed home till he came home.
And where did you guys graduate from?
Lima Central High School.
Both of you?
1941.
Do you know where your family originated? What nationalities?
My father's family originated from Germany, and they spelled the name B-R-E-H-M till they came to the United States, and then it was B-R-I-E-M. And my mother said she was a hillbilly down in the southern part of Ohio, down in Ironton, Ohio. She was born in a place called Etney Furnace, but that's no longer there anymore. And they had pig iron factories. But then she originally lived in what did I say?
Ironton,
Ohio. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then my mom's dad and mother brought them to Ohio, and for what I don't know, but that's where they came from, down in Ironton.
The basketball team was where they had 6 guys. All of them made the basketball team. What?
I don't remember the name. They were famous. The Waterloo Wonders.
Waterloo Wonders.
My mom used to tell us about the basketball team that became famous.
And they had a basket, a cut-off basket over the telephone
basket.
pole. Don't tell me kids are.
Yeah.
They're different today. aren't
Oh,
they?
yeah. We're a little spoiled.
Yeah.
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 Jack, where's your family from, do you know?
My father was from London, Ohio. Did they say it right?
Mm-hmm.
London, Ohio. His mom was, she was from County Cork, Ireland. And she married Grandpa. Grandma went first. And then Grandpa married another woman. They called her Lizzie Buzzard.
That was her name. And when his grandpa died, he was buried between the two women.
Oh.
And
Now, where's she buried at?
London, Ohio.
Okay.
And Grandma Handerhan was, I don't know how old she was, but the second wife lived to 100.
Wow.
Which was amazing in those days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's amazing now, but
Especially then. What kind of chores did you have growing up? You were kids.
Well, in those days, boys never did anything. It was just the girls. But we had to make our own beds, and even do the boys' beds. And we always had to set the table. After we ate, we had to red the table and wash and dry dishes. You know that thing. Other than that, that was about the extent of it.
No farm chores or anything like that.
No, no. Although at one time we lived out the country, but see, I had so many brothers that they're the ones that took care of the acres of corn and beans and everything that we had.
Yeah.
So my sister and I, we didn't have to do anything like farm work. We did have an outside toilet.
by the way, off of the record, do you want to eat grapes? Do
No.
you?
No? Grapes.
Grapes.
No, we're doing a thing here for
I
that.
said off of the record.
Yeah, that's fine.
Well,
You go-
I'm good, but thank you. We stopped and had breakfast not
okay.
too long ago. Okay. Did you have lots of aunt and uncles close by, or?
Yeah, my dad was the only boy, but he had 3 sisters. My Aunt Barbara, my Aunt Molly, and the one I was named after, Wilhelmina. And she was a nurse in the First World War. And we didn't live real close, My mom and my dad had such a big family. We just, we never had an automobile and didn't visit much. But, no. Now, my mother's sisters lived in Springfield, Ohio, and we were closer to them. But we were all close in Springfield until we moved to Lima. Then,
Yeah.
was different.
Let's see. Tell me a little about your houses growing up. How many bedrooms did your house have, and did you share a bedroom? And
Well, for my part, we always had a big house, and my mother and dad had a bedroom, and then in my brother's room there was 2 or 3 beds. They shared a bedroom, and my sister and I, we always had a bedroom together. But the thing about it is, my older brothers, we never had too many in bedrooms because then the older brothers got married and moved out, you know.
Yeah.
But we always lived in pretty big houses, and then when we lived in the country, we had bedrooms upstairs and downstairs. And we had a living room and then what they called an extra living room, you know. And then a dining room and a kitchen. We never ate in the kitchen. We always ate in the dining room. Only because it was so many of us and the dining room was so much bigger.
I'm sorry.
The
Okay.
first thing, when we got married in Denver, Colorado, I lived outside of Fort Logan in this little bitty house. What was the name of the park? Had a lot of the cabins. Anyway, it was Thanksgiving, and she had to cook on the coal stove.
And I never cooked in my life.
This is something else. And
Tell them what you did for things. That was our first Thanksgiving when we got married.
we got a chicken. I wrung his neck
And cleaned it.
and cleaned it. I watched Dad clean chickens, 100 and chickens.
Well, anyway.
And she had mashed potatoes that high, like she could cooking for her brother.
Well, that's the way we always
and
had
it took
meals.
15 minutes to eat. She had enough food because she could feed Fort Logan.
Well, we were all day. Now imagine, I never cooked because my mother always said, "No, we can't afford to waste any food." You know, we never had to cook. So I guess when we ate, we always had two of everything. You know, it was such a big family. Well, I was all day cooking, and he kept feeding the coal stove. You know, you had to keep it hot. And I had so much food, and we ate about 7 o'clock that night.
Exactly.
And when we got through, there was about this many potatoes gone and this many vegetables. And we were so exhausted we went to bed. So that was our first Thanksgiving. And I says, we just fell in bed. I said, oh my gosh. And that's when he said, you could have fed Fort Logan.
One time she was in the hospital, and she would do out of the hospital, which I brought her home, and she didn't smile.
It was Thanksgiving again.
And again, the Thanksgiving. I'm not gonna a turkey and all that crap. And I got to the supermarket, and I said, I'm gonna get a turkey. And I got a turkey. It was about the size of
A little.
a little, yeah. And I have a tray in there that you could put a 25-pound turkey on it. Instead, I had that tray and I put that little... It was funny.
And I was laying on the Davenport, you know, and I was so ill. He came in, he said, we're having I looked at it, it looked like a little bird, like, and I started laughing. So that was the extent of our Thanksgivings together. I've learned a lot since then. Bless his heart, he knew he was going to have turkey for me.
Oh, well, and we're living.
Oh, that's funny. Okay. Let's see. Did you have a big wedding?
No, because
You were in
I
Denver.
left my family and went out to Colorado, and there was the minister's wife and another lady there that stood up for us. So it was like an elopement, except my family knew we were going, you know. But no, we just were married in a parsonage. But it was in a church. And my mother said, the one thing I want you to do to be sure you're be married in a church, and it was Methodist. We were married in a Methodist church. Yeah.
Okay. Was there any games you guys liked to play when you were kids?
Baseball.
Post office.
Now, we played baseball because, see, I had so many brothers that my sister and I, we never had anything worthwhile saying, according to the boys. And we lived in the country, and across the street was a big field with cows and things. And we'd play baseball over there, and my mother would come out and play with us, you know.
Wow.
But we were always baseball fans, and Jack was too. And Jack, he played for several state champions and went to, where was it you went to for that state champ? His name is in a book. His
What you
picture's in
call
the book.
Kansas? Did I say that right?
Mm-hmm.
Wichita, Kansas.
Yeah.
Okay.
He played baseball. He was always very good.
That was like a semi.
And
Pro team?
and he played semi-pro
So
baseball when he was in Colorado, when
What-
he was in service.
What position did you play?
Outfield.
Center fielder. Yeah. He's had quite a few write-ups and quite a few nice, distinguished things for him.
What about your boxing days?
Oh, yeah.
Let me tell you about that.
I never got to see him boxing. Never wanted to see him.
I boxed in Springfield, Ohio. Oh, about I suppose I was 13 or 14 years old, but you had to be 16 in order to fight in the Golden Gloves. Paul Carnes and I put on an exhibition fight to get ready for the amateur fights. We did it for a couple of years.
Yeah, and it was on radio. They'd be on radio. Well, I'd sit home and listen to him on radio, and he always won. And in fact, when he was in England, he boxed and got a pin or a medal or a trophy or something.
Wow.
Yeah.
I think Tim gets a charge on this. There was an ex-fighter named, named Battling Jocko.
Tim has the boxing. Well,
And
you know,
he
you've seen
give
that
you a
boxing
drink out
picture.
of the bottle between your rounds, and I said, I smell whiskey. They didn't clean it. I could smell whiskey. And Battling Jocko. I never forget that. Anyway, I talked my brother into signing me up for 16 to get into the Golden Gloves. And I said, I've got more experience than you have, to my older brother Ray. And he, let's see, what was you talking about?
Never mind, it's your boxing.
Anyway, I was signed up legitimately, and they got into the Golden Gloves. The first guy I met was from the Street Sea Camp. They were like the Army, you know, and to make a long, short story, he beat the hell out of me. And
so that was his boxing career.
And then I come to Lima, and it was good for, I was a featherweight and lightweight champion.
Wow. When did you stop boxing?
I want to hit the welterweight, when I hit the welterweight division, they could hit hard.
Well, also, by that time, he was almost getting ready to go into service then, too. Yeah, but anyway, so he's been quite a sports figure off and on lots of different things.
Oh, I can't read now. I have tears coming out of my eyes. Okay, we'll talk a little bit about the kids. What was your first place like when you started having the kids? And
Well, after Jack came home from service, we had Linda, of course, and our first apartment, we lived upstairs, and we had 2 rooms. We had a living room, a kitchen, and then a bathroom. So our living room opened up a couch to make also the bedroom. So in our first living room, we had Linda's baby crib sitting right there. Now imagine that. But we were thrilled to death, and my mother always told me, she said, always have your own place. If it's only one room, you can shut the door and, you know, it's private and it's your business, and always do that. Don't try to live with somebody else, and 2 families never work. So that was our first place, apartment. But we never minded. It was nice, and it was upstairs, and then when we moved into various houses, then we started having the other kids then.
And I could track a little joke. Back in those days, the ice mine said 25 pound, 50 pound, 75 pound, 100 pound. And we had an ice box where you had to empty the ice pan, you know. I soon got rid of that ice box, 'cause that guy was a good-looking guy.
Oh, we'd be in bed at night. I thought what she was going to say. We'd be laying in bed at night, and you'd say, did you empty the icebox, man?
Oh, no.
Because,
Drip,
you put
drip,
something under,
drip.
I don't know, you're younger, see, you wouldn't have that, but see, at our age, it's a whole different kind of a living.
Yep.
But everybody was like that then.
Yeah.
And when you wanted ice, you had a card, and you put it in the window, and the iceman would stop. But see, you got neither one of them, even your mother would be too young for that. But we got, but everybody was like that. It wasn't that we were any different.
Right.
Yeah.
When did you guys move into this house?
We've lived here probably
45 years.
45 or 46 years. Yeah. And we bought this house. We moved into it as a rental. It was this house and the house next door were rentals. And the man that owned this house lived in Delphus, Ohio, you know. And a friend of mine told me about it. Well, I went uptown and saw this man. He worked in a drugstore, and he was just taking care of this house for the owner that lived in Delphus, and I asked if he'd rent it to us. And when I said we had 4 children, he said, like, you know, like you had monkeys or animals or something, you know. And I said, but they're well behaved. He said, yeah, everybody tells they're well behaved, you know. But anyway, I must have talked him into it because it said, okay. Well, he rented us. We lived in it as a rental for a year. And when I went home and told Jack, he says, well, we can't move. It was coming on to Christmas. I said, that's fine. You stay here, but me and 4 kids are moving over on Woodlawn. So we did, and my sister-in-law, Edna, they had a station wagon. We moved all day long, and we had the car full of my 4 kids and her 3 kids and all this. We looked like gypsies, you know, moving in. Well, we lived about a year.
Greg's the rep.
After we lived here a year, then we liked it. This is a very nice neighborhood and nice school, and I said, I wrote to the man in Delphus, and I asked him if he would sell us the house. And he said yes. And he said, but I'll sell it to you on a land contract. You know what that is. It's just like you're paying rent. And if you missed a payment or 2, the house would go back to him. Well, I had it set up through a bank, the Metropolitan Bank, so that every month when the rent was due, I went to the bank, and that's where we paid it. And he used to drive by a lot to see how things were going, and he'd go into Montgomery Ward's where Jack was working. And he'd tell him, well, I drove by the house, it looks pretty nice.
And
well,
I had to coot a 2-car garage built like the house didn't belong to me.
but we just acted like it was already our house.
Yeah.
And we sided the house, we did everything. And the garage that we have back here, 2-car garage, I worked at Lima Senior High School. I was a secretary, and the boys in the carpenter shop built our garage for us, so that all we had to pay was just for the materials for it. And anyway, we never missed a payment, and the man was so nice, so kind to us. And we always took care of the house. You know, some people, they don't take care of houses when they rent them, but we always kept it up nice.
We had the house sided.
Yeah.
If we run a class of bad luck, the siding belonged to this guy.
Yeah, everything
you know.
we did, if we took a chance that we'd lose it, went to them.
Okay, take a break for a second. Okay. The kids, did you have their names picked out before they were born, or is there any special reasoning behind their names?
Well, see, when Linda was born, Jack was overseas, and I picked out a name, Linda, because at that time, Linda was, I had never heard of that. I'd heard it on TV one time, and I wrote and told him that I was going to name the baby Linda. We named her Linda Jo. Well, after I named her Linda, every little girl I met was named Linda. But see, you know, you don't hear it, and then once you do, and then Cindy, I always liked the name of Cynthia. And she was the second one born, and I thought it was going to be a boy. And Jack had a name picked out, Tim, because he says that sounded like a good baseball name. Come on, Tim. Yeah, Tim. Let's go, Tim. Well, Tim turned out to be Cindy. And then Tim was born, so we finally got a Tim. And then Jack was born. Now, Jack, their real name is John, but they go by Jack. And I never had a middle name. My name was Wilhelmina, and that was such a long name. My mother never gave me a middle name. Well, when my two boys were born, I never gave them middle names. So they're Tim Willoughby and John, who is Jack Willoughby. And every day...
Jon.
Yeah. And somebody said, don't you like middle names? I said, yeah, but I just, And I always wished that I had given her my maiden name, to carry it, but it was too late then.
Let's see. Where did you work when you had the kids here?
Me?
Both of you, or did you?
Well,
See,
I never worked when I had kids, because with 4 kids,
That is working.
get up in the morning and have to run to a bed. Oh, well, and you wouldn't make enough money by the time you did that. I never worked, and I started working when I was single, and I worked at Montgomery Ward's, and I was head of the department, the hats and gloves and hose. But then never worked until all the kids were in school. And then when I worked, I was hired as a secretary to the director for the Board of Education at Lima Senior High School. Well, by that time, Linda and Cindy I only worked when the kids were in school. And when the holidays were there, so I never ever had to have a babysitter. And then I worked at the high school for the Board of Education for 26 years. So I've been retired about 23 years, haven't I? Yeah.
I think, yeah.
And I loved my job. I just loved it. But all my kids were in school, and I never had to worry about that. And before we moved here, we just lived about 4 blocks from the high school where I worked. So when the kids would come home from school, wouldn't be very long, I'd be right behind them.
Wow.
Yeah.
Jack, what about you?
I worked at the highest steel as a tow motor.
Tow motor?
Tow motor.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, thanks. And I drove a beer truck.
You drove a bread truck too?
I drove a bread truck. What's the bread? What was the bread I sold?
I don't know, but I'm for sure.
Anyway,
When did you start at Montgomery Ward's?
about 25 years ago. Oh, I worked, as you know, I had the stroke. I couldn't operate Montgomery Ward's Sunbeam Bird.
This is an antique. Cindy found this. He worked for Sunbeam Bread, and she found this sign and bought it for her dad.
Wow.
And then, well, before you worked at Montgomery Ward's, we had a business, a mercantile business.
Oh yeah, I
And
forgot that about.
Jack worked out of his automobile, that many years ago. They didn't have the malls or anything then. And he went door to door selling stuff. He was a door to door salesman for years. He raised 4 kids like that. Because, see, I didn't work. And then he had a friend that played baseball that worked at Montgomery Ward's, and he hired Jack as a salesman in the appliance department. And then when the mall opened up, he moved into the mall, so that's where he finished working. But Jack's worked hard all of his life,
And now I'm going to take it easy.
he raised a family, and sometimes it was rough. Sometimes we were out of money or anything, you know. He'd sell potatoes, he'd sell eggs, he did everything to keep his family afloat.
And Willie had that built, that screened-in back porch. I spent a lot of time there. I got a record player.
Yeah, one time.
And I got a refrigerator full of beer.
You know, funny about the screened-in back porch, you know. I thought that's what you were going to tell him. He was out one night and he didn't come home early enough, shall I say. And I was upset with him, you know. So I said, well, if he can do that, then I can do what I want to do. So I called up and I had that screened-in porch built and added on. And
that'll teach me the lesson.
And I said, now, and that's how I got that screened-in porch. But, you know, the thing about it was I had the payments taken out of my paycheck. It was already, every month it was paid for by the time I got my check, and we had that paid for and have lived in it all summer long ever since. So I always say, be careful now, you don't know what I might get into. I have to tell you though.
Excuse me a minute. I had not this screened-in porch, I had a little deck made. And I thought you were going to tell that story about I had a gas grill and she had extension made.
Yeah, he didn't make the deck big enough, so I added more to the, you know, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it like I want it, because once it's paid for.
Could you understand me? I mean, yeah.
Once it's paid for, then you can't say, oh, I wish I'd have done. I tell that to Tim, whatever you want, you get it, because you will pay for it. Once it's paid for, you have what you want, and you won't ever be sorry about that. So, I was going to say something about, I forget now what else I was going to say about the deck. But anyway, we live out there in the summertime. And in the wintertime, it's really a catch-all. When I don't know what to do with something, everything goes out there.
Okay. Which of the kids gave you the most trouble?
All of them. No, I don't mean that.
The most trouble, the one that gave us the least trouble,
Jackie.
was Linda and Jackie. Jackie, when he was little, he'd get up in the middle of the night and go sit and play with toys and things. Was real quiet. If I told Linda to hold my hand, she would hold my hand until I had to pry her fingers off. If I told Cindy to hold my hand, she would hold it, and the minute the light changed or whatever, she was off and gone. Cindy was always, she'll tell you to this day that what a wonderful mother I was. And she finally, because my mother always taught us that if you raise your children right, they'll always return to you, you know. And they might get into some trouble, but that will be their learning experience. So now I tell Cindy when she always writes on every card about how wonderful it was and how much trouble. She didn't do anything wrong. She just always was so independent. When I say come home at 10, she'd come home at 12. And if I say no, she did just the opposite. She was, you know. But she turned him out to be beautiful.
Oh, we hitting home more than anything?
One time Tim, when Jackie was little, I bought him a cannon that was a big thing at Christmas time for little kids. Well, one time Tim took that cannon uptown I don't remember. Him and a bunch of kids were against something, and they put the American flag in the window and that cannon and everything, and that was the only I never had real bad trouble with any of the kids.
Any of them do anything to scare you to death?
No.
No?
But my mother, I guess I got that off of her. But my mother would look at you and say, "Don't do that." Boy, those eyes like this, you know. Okay. Or if my mother was sitting, she'd go, you know, but boy, that pressure on that arm, you knew. Well, that's the way I was with my kids. At one time, I said to Tim, "Don't do that." And he says, "And what would you do?" Because he was telling you, he said, "What would you do if I do it again?" I said, "Would you like to try it?" He said, Because I always just kind of buffaloed him, you know.
That is known as respect.
Yeah, and our children to this day are, Patty can tell you that. They're very close, they're very loving, they're very affectionate, and we are number one on the totem pole. Which is what, but yet they have their own independent life. And I always thought that Jack and I were good in-law parents, because if it was like Cindy and Jimmy, we would defend Jimmy because we knew we loved Cindy, but we were always good in-law parents. Don't you think so,
Oh, absolutely.
Patty?
Yep.
Yeah, and our kids are all very, if they come in right now, they give you a hug, you know. And Tim never comes in that he doesn't kiss his dad and me or give us a hug, and he calls all the time because he's the only one we have here now. So we've been real fortunate with the kids and our grandkids.
And Patty and Nicholas.
Yeah. The only thing is, we don't live close enough to see them as much as we would like. But they always know that we love them.
Absolutely. Okay, we'll have a lot more time. Is there any, you have to tell me the motorcycle story.
Oh,
that would be Jack in service.
I'll try to tell you slow.
Okay.
And bear with me. One time, we called it the rear echelon. And one time I went over from my wire house to rear echelon, and there's a motorcycle there. And I said, "Hey, could I ride this motorcycle?" "Hell yes, it's yours."
But you forgot to tell them they'd come to you for parts.
So they bum all the parts off of me. I had to take the inventory and they covered it up. The United States government didn't know about that motorcycle.
See, that's the story that they come in, they say, "Hey Jack, we need this or we need that." When they got it all assembled, it was a motorcycle. So when he asked about it, said, "Yeah, you built it."
I got to ride on the motorcycle and I went around in the curve, in the circle, and they get faster and faster and faster. I was ready to jump off of it. And I got the gas and the spark, and that goes making me go faster or slower.
But that's how it was.
So I was running around hunting jackrabbits on the, what do you call that?
On the motorcycle?
Yeah. I'm forgetting something nowadays.
But that was
let me think.
That was a motorcycle deal that the men in the service kept coming to him for different parts. Well, he never realized, and when they got it all assembled, that's how they got the motorcycle. So when he asked to ride it, said, well, yeah, you're the one that built it.
We had a Diamond T, auto parts, auto car, Harley Davidson, and then I never seen any end names on a motorcycle. It was Harley Davidson. Well, I ended up with a end motorcycle.
Is there anything you guys, any stories that you think need to be told, or anything you guys want to?
Well, I think, let me see. The only thing, when Linda was born, Jack was overseas and I was in the hospital. I went in on the holiday, Memorial Day. Of course, she wasn't born till a day later. And everybody thought, they'd say, where's the father of the baby? And then I'd cry, he's over in England, But my mother and his mother were there for me, So we had Linda, and like I said, she was a year and a half old before Jack ever saw her. And then when it was time for Cindy, Jack was working for the beer company, driving a beer truck. Well, I had to go to the hospital, and I called his boss, and I said, where's Jack? I have to go to the hospital. Well, they knew I was expecting. Well, they were trying to contact him on his route, and they drove up in a great big limousine and took me to the hospital for Cindy to be born. And then the others, they were
funny.
all born in St. Rita's Hospital.
I bought a sweeper. What was the name of that sweeper? I bought the sweeper the time Cindy was born, and the sweeper was the same age as Cindy. I got a new sweeper 6 months ago.
Yeah, well, we always told Cindy the sweeper cost more than she did. We said, Cindy, the sweeper costs more than you did.
About 8 minutes, 9 minutes. I want to get Jack in the barn.
Well, I'm doing okay.
Jack's going into the barn.
How are you?
Did you see Jackie's picture up
Yeah,
there?
she was just showing that to me.
Good. Oh my gosh.
You got a beautiful home here.
That's enough about us.
She's almost finished.
I am about finished. I just wanted to, make sure there's nothing else you guys wanted to say. Is there anything you want to say to the kids?
I have to think about.
I'll give this to the kids after I get it all fixed up and cleaned up and stuff.
That's real
So
nice of you, Patty. That what a wonderful idea that is.
Patty is great. What you're doing is simply great.
Yeah.
oh, thank you.
Well, like Jack and I tell the kids now, I said, we've come up the mountain. Now Jack and I are going down the mountain. Well, they don't want to hear that stuff, but you never know, And we think we're very fortunate when Jack had his stroke that he wasn't paralyzed or, he could drive his car. He does everything. It just affected his speech, and we're
got
lucky.
a permission from the doctor. I can cut the grass. I can do the dishes.
He can cook.
I can run the sweeper.
We have a policy. Jack and I are just like two peas in a pod. Whoever gets up in the morning comes down and makes a coffee. The other one makes the bed. So if he gets up, he'll make the coffee and I make the bed. Now today I got up and he made the bed. And the first time he made a bed, it looked like it had animals sleeping in it, lumps and lumps and bumps, you know. I never said a word, but then I would smooth and pull it out and straighten it. But I never said, oh, that's terrible, because then he wouldn't make it. So finally, he's
that doesn't
got so
bother me. I'm going to make the bed right.
Yeah, well, you do now, yeah. And see, like Jack and Tim has his own house. They make beds and clean, and they learn to do that. And my brothers, they never had to do anything. That back in those days, the men were, you know, they didn't push a baby carriage or they didn't change a diaper or anything. Well, that's a big difference in nowadays.
Yeah.
I can always brag. I got a little bit of crap under my fingernail.
Okay. Is there any other stories that need to be told? Anything you guys want to leave your kids?
Yeah. The only thing that we have a will, which ever say, Jack, about our family or anything?
No, everything is all right.
Well, I always told the kids that, you know, Jack and I, when we're ever gone, they are never to argue or fuss over anything. You know how some kids do, you know, and I said, there's nothing in the world nicer than being close to your family and not bickering. I've heard of people that fight over things. I said, there's nothing in this house worth fighting over, but I don't think they ever will. And Jack and I have been lucky to be together, both of us together at this age and still being able to drive. And Jack says I'm on the lunch circuit. I go to lunch all the time.
And Zachary's got that buffet.
Oh, no. The only thing in our will is that buffet. That belonged to Jack's grandmother, and that came from England. And I said, the only one that it's in our will that's going to get it is Tim. And the reason Tim will get it is because he's the only one that have boys. My one daughter doesn't have any children. My other daughter has a girl. That way it would stay in the Willoughby family. So I said, the only thing in our will is that buffet, and that's real old. We had someone value at one time, thought it was worth about $8,000 because of the front of it with they call that tea leafing. And as old as it is now, whether or not it would ever somebody would have to want it to pay that, you know.
So,
But
Patty,
that will go to Tim.
and if Tim doesn't want it, it's still goes to Zachary.
But only with the stipulation that if they don't want it, it's fine. It's theirs to give or to do with.
Yeah.
You know, you
well-
have to have a place to put a big piece of furniture like that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if we would say that would go to Tim, it belongs to Tim. So whatever he does, that's up to him.
Right. Anything else you think of? Okay. All right.
Well, I think we've answered about any. Is there anything that you can think of that you might want to know about us? We've been married for, in May.
Steady now, girl.
I know, I was just waiting for you to tell them.
65 years, 66 years.
66 years. But we went together 3 years before that.
It's amazing.
So, see,
So what's the secret to a marriage? To a long, happy
first
marriage?
of all, respect. Respect. He's the only boy I ever went with. I can't say
I
no,
could tell you about a whole lot of guys.
Not guys, girls. He's the only boy I ever went steady with. We got married. I think I have to tell you this because I think it's respect that keeps you together. Jack, I never put a coat on. I never open a door. Jack always opens a door. Even now, Jack opens a door when I get in an automobile. It's just respect. And I think our kids have respect. They respect us and we respect. We've never been nosy in-laws. We've never pried into any of their business.
And that all comes from eating St. B bread.
Okay.
I got that plug in.
Well, you know, a lot of people, they have kids that talk back to them that use, and I have to say, Jack and I, neither one, ever have heard our children use foul language. I'm sure they might say cuss words or something. We've never heard that. Never heard bad language. And when
Only
they were little,
thing is, next to us use bad language.
Not without getting the
No.
slap upside his head, he doesn't. Okay, my tape's about to end, so thank you
Well,
guys
you know,
for doing
I'm
this.
sure that when the boys are out, they'll say damn or, you know, but we've never had bad language. Jack and I never have bad language.
Okay.
And in this day and age, when I hear the kids that use those certain words, I am flabbergasted.
You have anything to say?
No, I'm enjoying it.
Okay, thank you guys for doing this. My tape's about to end.
Well, thank
Okay.
you for doing it,
Thank
Patty.
you, Patty.
That's a very wonderful